let's see what we got going on. Let me pull this thing up. All right, here we go. I got to do a little bit of housekeeping before we get into this thing, but we're going to talk about this vote. We got to talk about this vote because once again, the Democrats have decided to sell out the American people. That is their MO every single time, and I just don't understand it. Right? These people, they're elected to office. They're supposed to represent some people in their district, and I doubt that there are any Democrats that are enthusiastic about continuing to fund ICE and DHS under the current circumstances, right? We had Renee Good, we had Alex Preddy, we had Liam Ramos, who thankfully, that's the 5-year-old boy. Him and his father were shipped down to Texas into a immigrant holding facility, right? And they were recently returned back up to Minneapolis. So that was Liam Ramos, Renee Good, Alex Preddy. You have all of these instances that are happening back to back to back to back. But the public has said largely is, hey, we don't really like what DHS is doing, what ICE is doing in these operations. So why don't we go ahead and pause a little bit of funding for this agency and force them to do some reforms before we pass any funding bill? It went from the House to the Senate. The Senate passed some stuff and went back to the House. And here we are. It's been reported that the government shutdown is ending because they were able to make some progress, right? They were able to say, okay, well, we're just going to kick the can down the road again. Like, when does it stop? My question is, at what point does the Democratic Party in general just say, okay, we're not going to keep kicking the can down the road. The buck stops here. It seems like they never choose that option. The option they always choose time and time again is, okay, well, these people, we act like we care about them. But, just keep doing what you're doing. We'll kick the can down the road, and then we'll pretend like we're going to force you to do something instead of using the leverage now. And then later, when everybody's forgot or they're back to their normal lives and the protesting stops and everything starts going down, that is when the Democrats finally come back and they're like, okay, you can just go ahead and continue to tell us no. But this time we won't have the people's vitriol with this vote, right? So that's where we are. Let me go ahead and get into this Axios thing so I can read you verbatim, at least what Axios is reporting. It says House Democrats help Mike Johnson end the government shutdown. More than 20 House Democrats voted with Republicans on Tuesday to reopen the government. We didn't really expect too much of them, if we're being completely honest. Like, I knew that this was going to happen. This is what always happens. This is their playbook. It was their playbook last time. We recently had I think it was like 5 or 6 week long government shutdown at the beginning of this fiscal year, right? Fiscal year starts October 1st. Democrats, there was a shutdown at that time. People were blaming the Republicans for not acquiescing on any of the healthcare stuff. And then we get this time with 2 people that have been murdered under the DHS umbrella. One was by ICE, one was by CBP. And then multiple shootings, arrests, all sorts of stuff that's been happening in the media. And all the public asked was, hey, do you mind pausing a little bit of funding until you can get some reforms? Nobody is saying that CBP and ICE don't play a vital role. Nobody is saying that. We're saying, hey, Chuck Schumer's like, oh, well, we'll make them stop wearing a mask and we'll have them wear a body cam. That's a start. But how about stop whooping people's ass in the street? How did Alex Preddy get into the situation that he was in, right? What preceded the situation where Alex Preddy ended up laying on his belly and getting shot by those CBP officers, it was recently ruled a murder, by the way. What preceded that moment was he was getting in the way of an ICE or CBP agent that had pushed a lady into the snow. How about we get some sort of reforms where that stuff does not happen? But Chuck Schumer, he doesn't care all that much about what's going on in the public. He just wants to get back to collecting his checks, right? So that's why he didn't really put up a fight at all in order to stop, the funding or demand more stringent rules around these engagements with the public, what we expected. So it says why it matters. The vote created harsh divisions among Democrats, some of whom argued that the party should use the partial shutdown as leverage to force drastic reforms of ICE and CBP. Some Democrats, probably not Hakeem Jeffries for all the lip service that he does. I don't know how the vote went. I didn't take a look at it, but I know that the funding bill is passed, right? Chuck Schumer, he didn't seem to want to put up a fight. He didn't put any drastic measures. Hey, don't wear masks. They're going to violate that. Hey, don't start wearing body cams. They're going to violate that. They're going to turn them off. Body cam, they could say, oh, my camera wasn't working that day or I forgot to turn it on. And then what is going to be the repercussion? Nothing. They're not going to do anything because every time Democrats have some sort of way to force even a little bit of leverage, what they do is sit on their hands instead of doing anything at all. And once again, this is on the back of two people being murdered. I think both of the deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy were ruled homicides. So this not to say that we should use these people's lives as political leverage, but they're in the situation, or we're in the situation as a nation. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but if somebody wants to give me a contract, I'll be perfectly fine with that. We're in the situation that we're in because of the overstep of ICE. It's not because they were wearing masks or they didn't have body cams. So those, to me, those are more symbolic than they are actually asking for any real change. And that's what pisses me off the most. Like, use the leverage that you have from these incidents to make sure that they don't happen to other people. To put just a little bit of a leash on all of these wild interactions that these federal agents are having with the public, you know? But what do I know? I'm not in law enforcement. It says many Democrats have also felt considerable apprehensions about the optics of voting for even short-term DHS funding without strings attached following the fatal shootings of Renee and Alex. They should. I think that they should. I think that they 100% should feel some apprehension. This is the thing. If you're not going to do the will of the people as an elected official, as a public servant, then you should feel a little bit of pressure. You should feel a lot of pressure. You should feel like, hey, if I don't do this, if I'm not following through with the wishes of the people that I'm supposed to represent, I can never work in this town again. That's how you should feel. But they don't feel like that. Everything is a political move to get you to the next step, to get you higher up the ladder. And there should be a system where we say there is no ladder. We're going to burn that shit down if you don't know how to listen. And they don't know how to listen. It says several members of leadership argued that it would be bad strategy to allow the government to shut down, with other lawmakers saying their districts need agencies like FEMA to be funded. Yes, I'm not, like I said, there are other agencies under that DHS umbrella. All of the agencies have been established for a reason, and you know, they serve an important role. They serve a role, or they wouldn't have been established in the first place. But people also need to have sensible interactions with federal agents, right? We need the federal funding, but we also need reforms so people aren't getting their ass whooped in the streets like we see time and time and time again. There was a video of a guy, I don't even know where it is. There was a video of an agent. He's sitting in a car. He says to somebody's recording him in the car. He says, if you raise your voice, I will erase your voice. He says that on camera. Like, this is a normal thing to say. Like, hey, I'm going to say this. I'm going to give you this threat as a federal officer, and it's going to be zero, like not a single shred of repercussion from you or my leadership for me saying this. Just said it, as people would say, willy-nilly. Just said it all willy-nilly and didn't give a shit, right? What is the guy going to do? What is the guy that's recording going to do? He going to send in a complaint? These are the type of interactions that we've come to expect under the Trump administration, and nobody cares. So it says the House voted 217 to 214 to pass the legislation which funds Department of Defense, Treasury, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, State and Labor until September. So I'm guessing, Okay, so they funded all of these different things, and they've only kicked the can for DHS down the road for 2 weeks. I think that says it somewhere. Anyway, I don't know how this is a win for Democrats. Just like the healthcare funding, the ACA extended credits, they said, hey, let's try to put something on the board in December. And Mike Johnson was like, I don't care what we put on the board. I'm already letting you know that even if we give you this concession to help you save face with the public, which people knew what was going on, right? But Mike Johnson's like, even if we give you this vote, the answer is going to be no. We're not extending the ACA subsidies. At this point, I think they were extended. Um, I think they ended up getting extended. I can't remember. But the point is, when you use your when you have the leverage in the moment, you use the leverage. This is why they keep over and over and over having to. Um, what I'll say is, I hope that at some point they learn to take a play out of Donald Trump's playbook in terms of negotiating, right? The Democrats. Donald Trump will overpromise, and then when he settles a little bit, it looks like, okay, well, I gave, if you just give me this thing, which is totally overreaching, right? It's not what he initially asked for, but it's still overreaching. The Democrats need to take a little bit of a play from that book. It doesn't always work out for Trump, right? They have the term taco. Trump always chickens out. But he definitely, when he does ask, he will overreach. And he'll make you look like a fool. Democrats need to take a little bit out of that playbook and show the American public that they actually have a spine. That's all we're asking. We're not saying that you're going to win everything or you're always going to be in the right, but like at least show the American public that you're willing to stand up for what it is that you believe in and what it is that your constituents think that you should be doing. If that's not the playbook that you want to run, then you need to run your ass back to your hometown and pick a different job, pick a 9 to 5. Pick a 9 to 5 or start a business or do something, but get out of public office. It's just my opinion. I don't know. But I'm tired of this. I tell you that. This game of kick the can down the road, just repeatedly getting your ass handed to you. Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries. You guys are supposed to be the leaders of the House and the Senate, for the Democrats. And all you're doing is looking to politically maneuver to your next step. You don't give a shit about what passes or doesn't pass as long as you keep going up the ladder. It's crazy. All right, let's go on. All right. I don't know if you guys heard or saw about the Melania doc. Melania had a documentary that came out. I guess it's supposed to be talking about her life, her experiences being first lady, Trump's wife, and by all accounts, people are saying it's a flop. People are saying it's a flop. You see over here, it has 34,000 reviews, a 1.3 out of 10 stars. And there's going to be quite a few of those that are just review bombs, right? Like people don't like Melania because they don't like Trump. They don't like that entire regime. So she's going to get some of that residual. But I got to ask, and maybe I'm the only person thinking this, but who gives a shit about a Melania documentary? Who? Who asked for this? It was reported that Amazon bought this to stream or show in theaters or whatever they're doing with it for $40 million. It's not necessarily like a high Hollywood budget or anything, but then they spent another $35 million advertising this, right? Marketing it. How many people do you think are going to go out to watch a Melania documentary? I'm certainly not doing it. You're probably not doing it. Nobody wants to see this. But because she's Trump aligned and because all of these billionaires have had the opportunity to kiss Trump's ass and then they get rewarded for it on the back end, which Amazon did, and I'm going to show you that. Or at least Blue Origin did, which is owned by Jeff Bezos. And I believe Jeff Bezos was at Trump's inauguration, right? So we know how the game is played. But Melania, she got 34,000 reviews, 1.3 stars. She got to have a movie that nobody wanted, nobody asked for. And what I got to say is it's probably never been a better time in history to be a corrupt politician or a corrupt businessman. You can literally buy access to the president. You can literally buy access to the president, his administration, and people are having their way under the Trump administration. And if you do some crime and you get caught for it, all you got to do is blame it on say it was a Biden hoax. That's what I should have done. You know what I should have done? I should have done some PPP loan scams. Got me a couple $100,000, invested it right after 2022. You remember? If you guys don't remember, that's when they had the dip in the stock market, and then it's been up ever since. Right? It's been damn near going to the moon ever since. And then if I got caught for doing PPP loans, what I should have did was told Trump, wrote him a letter and said it's a Biden era hoax, because that seems to be getting everybody else out of jail free. Right? You got the crypto billionaire. You got Russ Ulbricht, who was the guy that did the Silk Road. Everybody from Trump's administration is winning. Check this out. This is the guy that went to go see Melania, the movie. He said it was pretty good.
All right, so I'm super excited, super excited. I am actually going to the drive-in movie, and I'm going to see the new Melania. I know, but I want to see what it's about. So here we go, drive-in. Wow, this is crystal clear. Man, they must have got Dolby surround sound.
All right. I don't know if you guys laughed, but I laughed. I thought that was hilarious. When I was scrolling, I thought he was actually going to see it. And yeah, I like that. That's hilarious. Long and short of it is, people are not going to go see that, but at least I'm not going to see it. There's certainly going to be people that work 40 hours a week. They're 9 to 5. They come home, kick off their shoes, get dressed, and go see a Melania movie. It won't be me. I will not be spending my hard-earned money to go see the president's wife, however many she's on, however many he's on, like third or fourth or fifth wife, whichever number she is. I'm not going to go see that. But here's how the Trump administration has responded. It says Amazon paid Melania $40 million for the rights to the worst documentary ever made and spent $35 million to market the turd. Now they've poised to receive billions in military contracts paid for with our tax dollars. That's the way it goes, man. This is damn near paramount to money laundering. Like, I don't understand how this thing goes on and on and on and on. It's like Trump and his administration, if you're a billionaire, is the gift that keeps on giving. Because you give him a little bit of money. I think they said something like $583 million worth of contracts. For Jeff Bezos, that's not the sum total of his entire net worth. Certainly not. I'm not saying that Jeff Bezos he's going to be rich as if he wasn't rich before. But how do you end up getting all of this money, and all you had to pay was a small fraction, right? You pay $75 million in order to get $583 million. It's never been a better time on the history of the earth to be a corrupt and moralist person. It's never been a better time. Unfortunately, I was born with guidance and morals. I was instilled with guidance and morals that my parents gave me. So this will never be a game that I could play in. But if you're willing to shed all of that, then they've got a spot for you up in the Trump administration. They will make you rich. If you're not, I'm sorry, they will not make you rich. If you're already rich, they have a spot for you. But it is a pay-to-play type of deal. So, I hope you come in with something. And you better be ready to kiss Trump's ass too, because that is the way the game is played. All right, let's talk about this Epstein thing now. This Epstein thing, unfortunately, is getting worse and worse by the second. It really is. We already know that recently they dropped they had dropped 3 million documents. I believe that was on Friday. That was what, the 31st or the 30th or the 31st of January? One of the two. So of course people went through the weekend combing through the documents. Well, one of the people that responded to what has been leaked has been Dan Bongino. Dan Bongino was a podcaster that was a conspiracy theorist. He was a MAGA loyalist. He ended up going into the administration as the deputy director of the FBI, right? He was number two, right under Cash Patel. And just the fact that Cash Patel is the number one guy, that shows you how incompetent the administration has been in appointing people, right? And then they appoint Dan Bongino with his terrible fucking hairline. The dude has a worse hairline than me, and I'm fucking bald. That's really got to be something, right? It's really got to be something for you to have a worse hairline than a bald guy. But Dan Bongino, after quitting on December 19th, when the Epstein files was supposed to drop initially, right, by the Epstein Transparency Act, he's been back on his podcast to combat any narrative saying that there was something, what is the word, that implicates any billionaires or any politicians or anybody with power. He's jumped back on his podcast to say there's nothing to see here. Close your eyes, cover your ears. There's nothing to see here. You're never going to get the answers that you're looking for. And a lot of us, rightfully, are calling bullshit. How was it that for all of these years, this guy was able to operate, do everything that he wanted to do in terms of the public and all these powerful people that he's been intertwined with, and all of the allegations, and he's the only person, him and Ghislaine Maxwell, the only people to feel the wrath of America's justice? You want me to believe that? You want to look me in my eye and tell me this guy that's had world leaders in and out of his house, this guy that's interacted and bumped elbows with all of the most well-known and famous people that are in politics and around politics, and you want me to believe none of these people were either privy to or involved in the things that Epstein was involved in? No, I just won't believe that. I won't believe it. So Dan Bongino, like I was saying in the beginning, Dan Bongino hops back on his podcast to do the legwork of spinning this, because that's what his job is. He's a MAGA conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to say he's a great communicator. I don't know. I don't watch this fucking show. But he is somebody that can communicate the message that the Trump administration wants to put out there. So they told him, yo, just put in your 2 weeks, get back on the podcast, and tell the people what we want them to know. So this is Dan Bongino's response. I know I've been talking at length. Here we go.
For a second. Double or triple hearsay. You're seeing it now. You're seeing on Twitter, like, this guy said Joey Bag of Donuts, cut this woman with a razor, or this young girl while raping her. And you're like, wow, that's a really horrible story. It's terrible. And then you find out Joey Bag of Donuts was some famous athlete who was playing a game in Phoenix that night. Like, a lot of this stuff was just people called, not all, by the way, not all of it. This is an extremely serious case. Let me be crystal clear. But that doesn't mean every single tip that came in, had any kind of veracity to it at all.
He said not all of it was bullshit. This is an extremely serious case. Yes, we already knew that. This is the issue. Dan Bongino was trying to push this off as new information, as if we already didn't know that this was a very serious case. The issue is, you went to the Trump administration. You were part of that administration as the number 2 guy over in the FBI and said, I'm going to blow the top off of this shit. I'm going to tell you everything that's happening. That's what you said. And you're a liar because you did not keep your word. You said the things that you saw in the Epstein files, I forgot the exact quote, but basically, like, you can't believe the amount of shit that's in there. And then the administration said, oh, well, there's no Epstein files. There's nothing to see here. There's no people that we can implicate. There's no people to arrest. So is it that you saw things in there and there are people to arrest, or is that not the case? Two things cannot be true. You can't have millions and millions of files and no single person is implicated. And you also say that it's so serious and there are some allegations that were false and they were fabricated, but some of them are true and the people are not arrested. Those two things can't be true. It's ridiculous. But this is the lie that Dan Bongino has been entrusted with telling. This is why he was let go, in my opinion, from the Trump administration. They said, get back out there and spin it. You know, like Carolyn Levitt. They said she's going to do it from the inside. That sounds crazy. Caroline Levitt is going to do it as the official White House press secretary, and Dan Bongino is going to do it on his show. If you think that he's going to leave the MAGA coalition, maybe he's being paid under the table, maybe he's not, but he is certainly willing to continue spreading the lies and get on his show and continue to make money as a MAGA and Trump loyalist.
Oh, a lot of the stuff was clearly debunked. He said, does anyone believe Bondi, Patel, or Bongino would cover up for Bill Clinton or Bill Gates? Didn't even make sense. I was all over this case on my show. The Trump DOJ wanted to be fully transparent, but it couldn't at the time for the reasons above. It's not going to satisfy many, and that's fine. But folks, I'm not going to spend the next 2 years talking about it. This administration got you the information. You can all look at it, and a lot of people are using it to divide us from the inside. Those are just the facts.
No, those are not the facts. He said they released the information. As it's been reported, they didn't even release all of the information. When they dropped those 3 million documents on Friday, on the 30th, January 30th, 2026, it was reported multiple times by multiple outlets. And also, Thomas Massey and Rokana commented, hey, this is only half. This is only 50% of what the Justice Department said that they have. They're retaining the other half that may even be more incriminating because they're saying, oh, well, you know, we have to redact names. And I thought that's what you guys were doing with this set of files. I thought that you were redacting names and protecting victims with the 3 million that you released. So go ahead, continue the work that you're doing since you already blew past, a month and a half to release those 3,000 documents. Continue the work that you were doing and release the next 3 million. That's what you need to do. Instead of making up lies why you can't release more, release the entire thing. Be as transparent as you guys said that you were going to be when you came into office. And tell Dan Bongino, we don't believe you. You need more people, as Jay-Z said. What else we got? Oh, here's this gentleman. This is, what is this lady's name? I forgot her name, but check out this conversation that they have about the Epstein files and who is implicated in them and why we don't know more.
Well, as some of the people we saw on camera.
Her name is Laura Ingraham. That's her name. Check out Laura Ingram's conversation with Todd Blanche.
At the rallies. Is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted?
Listen to the question. I'm going to repeat it for you, not verbatim because I don't want to say that. Is there any indication that the people that partied with Epstein and engaged in the actions in which Epstein has been convicted of in the past, are any of those people going to be tried and convicted? It's a very specific question. The people that partied with Epstein and engaged in the Epstein-like behavior that we know him for as the public, are those people going to be arrested?
Any chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. And so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things. And if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look like that's all that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if
Exactly. And this is the type of bullshit that they try to spin in order to confuse you and me. It's not a crime to party with Epstein. Nobody thought that it was a crime to quote unquote party with Epstein. But the things that Epstein has been accused of and was convicted for, or he was on trial for, he was arrested for, he was never convicted because he disappeared from the face of the earth, either by his own hand or somebody else's. But the things that Epstein was known for, we're saying that the people that did those things in tandem with him, are they going to be arrested? Are they going to go to jail? Are they going to be exposed? He's like, oh, well, partying with Epstein is not, people are allowed to do that. Okay, remember, this is how they spin it. This is how Todd Blanche, who used to be Donald Trump's personal lawyer, he also went down to interview Ghislaine Maxwell down in Florida before she got moved to what's been reported as a vacation club prison over in Texas, where she gets to have dogs and have walks on the beach, not literally, but figuratively, in terms of prison sentences. So remember, this is how they pull the wool over your eyes. This is why communication is important. He wants to focus not on the crimes that people did, but specifically emailing and partying with Jeffrey Epstein, right? Just because the dude had an island, he had a private jet, you know, there were potentially horrendous things that were going on Epstein's properties. And there are people that are 100% complicit in those things. And we want to know if they're going to be, if they're going to feel the full weight of America's justice for the things that they participated in. And nobody that has the reins of power in the Trump administration wants to hold them accountable, at least right now, even though they purported to be the most transparent administration. They jump over a lot of hurdles in order to muddy the waters and keep from being transparent. I don't even want to go back into Dan Bongino. Look at this fucking hairline. This shit is crazy. I could say that because I also have a big head, and instead of trying to hold on to my hairline, you know, I was just thinning on the corners. But instead of trying to hold on to it, I said, you know, let me go ahead and shave it bald. It don't take much. It don't take much at all. So this says, this isn't some anonymous tip. This is a sworn testimony under penalty of perjury from someone who said Donald Trump threatened to take her out if she exposed Epstein's abuse. I personally witnessed the defendant telling the plaintiff that if she ever says anything, if she didn't want to disappear, like you could read it here, and he was capable of having her family eliminated. This was in 2016. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Tiffany Doe, a pseudonym. So all of that stuff they try to say, oh, well, Trump isn't implicated in the files. This person isn't implicated in the files. There's nothing tangible. There's nothing tangible there or people to be held responsible. You know, this was in the files. Are they going to say that this was doctored as well? Are they going to say that this was made up as well? This is before Epstein received his second indictment. Makes you wonder, who is it that's running our country? Who has the reins of power? And is steering this ship away from implicating them or having them indicted. All right, so that's been the show for today. If you liked it, I appreciate you. I always appreciate everybody tuning in. Let me know what you like, what you didn't like. And of course, we're going to continue to try to improve on what it is that we bring here. But this is Say It Loud, of a place for discourse. Until next time, don't add to the population. Don't take away from the population. Peace.